Alrighty, hello everybody. So today I want to talk about regret, and just kind of by the way, before I jump into this, I don't. You can probably tell by the way my videos are, but I have nothing scripted. I have nothing I'm reading, nothing that I'm looking at. I have a very rough idea. Like I literally wrote down the word regret today, and that's what my video is about. And I don't have any idea what to talk about, I just kind of play it. I was listening to this guy Elliot Hulse. He has this podcast called Yo Elliot, and people just ask him questions and they get his opinions on things, and he makes these videos about everything. And kind of the similar style to him. I think me and him kind of do things similarly, to where he just kind of talks off the cuff and he's spontaneous. He kind of just does what he feels and speaks as he would just kind of off the cuff. I mean, there's nothing planned. There's nothing scripted, nothing scheduled. There's no itinerary. It's just kind of it all just kind of happens. And so anyway, that's kind of how I've been doing my videos. I have a rough idea. Like I might write down a couple sentences at most. But anyway, the things I'm saying are just kind of as I think of them. So anyway, regret. So I think a lot of us live life. I'm trying to get onto this dang highway, okay? I'm just gonna kind of go for it, Hang on, bear with me. Okay, so regret. I think that a lot of people regret a lot of things. There's one of my friends back in the Springs. He lives his life in a way to where there really kind of is no regret. He, in the moment, whenever he's doing anything, he always does things as if it were his last day, right? If he had no chance to do that thing again, and he had the idea of, oh, I kind of want to do that thing, but I don't really know about it. I'm kind of sketched out about it. If he has the idea of, I want to do that, but then the thought of, well, if I don't do that, I'm going to regret it. So he never does that. He never goes through any of that, because he just does it all, right? If he has that idea that crosses his mind, he's thinking, well, I would kind of like to do that, whatever that thing might be. There is no regret, because he just does it. And if he fails at it, at least he knows he tried, right? And so I always kind of think about him and the way he lives his life throughout many circumstances of my, in my own life. Because you might not get tomorrow, right? Nothing is a guarantee. Literally nothing is a guarantee. And so when you kind of keep that in the back of your mind, it gives you a new perspective on how you go about doing your day-to-day life, right? If I have the let's see, what's the word? If I have just desire. If I have the desire to do something, and I end up not doing it, that pain of regret is so much worse than just doing the thing. Even if it is a scary thing. Like, let's say, for example, doing a speech. Like, let's say I feel almost obligated to do a speech, or to do like a TED Talk or something. I have like a cool idea that I know I want to share, but I get nervous about, being in front of an audience and doing a TED Talk, which I kind of, at some point, would like to do. For me, manning up and just doing the TED Talk, and while that is scary and that while that is intimidating, that is so much less painful than not doing it and wishing that I had, right? So I think that the other, can you say that? The vice versa? There's sawdust in my eyeballs. The vice versa of that, the opposite of that, is so much worse. Just doing the thing, while it can be scary, I think is so much more, first of all, rewarding and satisfactory, but also you just don't get that pain of regret, which to me is so much worse than just doing it. And also I was just thinking about kind of our life story and things that we already do regret, and things that we have done that we wish we hadn't. And I was just thinking about that. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and she was just saying that that's what makes you who you are. Like the things that you regret, the things that have shaped you, that's the building blocks of who you are. That's what made you. You wouldn't be yourself if you wouldn't have gone through those things. And so I kind of told her this little story about what made me who I am today. And at first I was kind of hesitant, right? Because you never really know when someone's going to react differently and when they might think of you differently. And that's what I said to her. But then she was kind of just mentioning that, well, if they do think of you differently after you telling them what made you you, then they're not worth your time, right? If you are being vulnerable and you're telling them something about your past, whatever the case may be, and you're expressing to them what had happened and what has shaped you, and then they judge you, and then they shift their thinking to where they think of you differently. And if that's the kind of person that you're talking to, then that means I have so much stuff in my eyeballs. Then that means they're probably not worth your time. And that was such a great point that I thought that she had brought up, because a lot of times I get hesitant with speaking about things that make me feel vulnerable, right? I mean, there's so many things in my past that were so fucking stupid that I never should have done, but at the same time, doing those stupid things is exactly why I am where I am today. And that's shaped me to be the person I am today. Without those things, I wouldn't be who you're listening to, right? I probably wouldn't be making these videos if it wasn't for those stupid ass mistakes that I had made. I mean, mistakes are such a crucial part of life. And I mean, we all understand that, I think, but maybe not though. Maybe we don't all understand that. And I think that we can't be afraid of regret, because the good and the bad teaches you lessons. I mean, through the good things and through the bad things, you learn something, right? Sometimes those lessons are more painful than others. I was just listening to an Oprah podcast, and she was just mentioning how sometimes those lessons, I think, I want to say it was Cheryl Strayed, or whatever that lady's name is. I think it's Cheryl Strayed, was talking about how there's lessons throughout the whole spectrum, right? There's lessons in the good and the bad. And sometimes those lessons are painful, and sometimes those lessons are beautiful. You get both things, both lessons in both forms. So I think we got to stop being afraid of regret and stop being afraid of making mistakes, because again, that's what makes you who you are. I mean, and nobody is perfect. Not one person can be perfect. Nothing is ever perfect. It's not possible. And so it's the imperfections and the things that we fuck up on that end up making you the person that you are. And without those, you wouldn't. I guess I'm kind of running in circles now. But without those mistakes having happened, like if you were to go back and take those away, you would completely change your identity, right? If you took away, it's kind of the whole butterfly effect thing. If one thing changed in the past, if you were to go back in time in a time machine and just change one little tiny thing, well, that might affect the whole spectrum of things, right? You never really know, and we'll probably never ever know that. But it's just the point is that you can't live your life in fear of regret and in fear of failure. It's a massive part of life, and Will Smith talks about that as well. He has a YouTube channel where he kind of talks about failure and how when you go to the gym, you're actually seeking failure. I think we're also scared of failure. Why are we also scared of failure? I think that a big reason is the schooling system, right? When you go to school, the whole goal is to not fail. When you fail, you cannot proceed. You cannot progress when you fail in school. When you fail a test, you either have a harder chance of passing the class, or you don't pass it, or whatever. When you fail, that's not what you want to be doing in school. And that's kind of the way that we get brought up and we get taught from a little tiny baby kid, from whatever preschool is, whatever age that even is. It's like you're a child. So from a child all the way up through college, you're being hardwired to run from failure. And that, I think, is a dangerous thing, because failure, and if you look up like different little quotes online from Thomas Edison and like Benjamin Franklin, or just these massive celebrities that have been famous, and they live on for years past their death in our lives, and you think, okay, well, why? What did they do? Well, a lot of what they did was fail. They actually seeked failure, and they didn't care about regret. They didn't regret anything. That those failures were not they weren't regretful. Regretful? Is that a word? But the thing, I mean, Thomas Edison thousands of times tried to make the light bulb, thousands and thousands and thousands, and tried all these things and failed and failed and failed for years. And then he finally figured it out, and that one thing transformed all of our lives, all of humanity's lives. I mean, he transformed humanity. We have light now, where we obviously didn't have light before. That felt dumb to say, but you know what I'm saying though. So anyway, don't be afraid of regret, and don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Actually, I'll take that back. Allow yourself to be afraid of being vulnerable, but do it anyway. That's one of Oprah's quotes, by the way, as well. Is feel the fear and do it anyway. So yes, opening yourself up to somebody and being vulnerable is the most courageous thing you can do. Being truthful is the most courageous, brave thing that you can do. Hiding your fear and emotions like a man, right, is in my eyes is even less courageous. I was also listening to, this is gonna be my longest video probably yet. I was listening to a Mike Tyson, Tony Robbins podcast. So Mike Tyson was the guest, and I'm sure you're probably aware of Mike Tyson, but he has this image of being just this badass boxer who is invincible, right? Nobody could beat him. He was a knockout king. I mean, he was a monster. He's Mike Tyson, right? Well, on that podcast, there was a segment they were going over where he started bawling. He was crying on stage in front of thousands of people. Tears were flowing and things were going crazy. And that, to me, and even I think actually Tony mentioned that on the podcast, that's so courageous. You know, he has this identity, I don't want to crash right now, of being just the toughest, baddest motherfucker that anybody knows. But that's exactly the reason that he cried, is because he is the toughest, baddest motherfucker. Like, yes, we have this different image of him, of not crying and being a man or whatever you want to say, but it's more courageous and more brave if you are vulnerable with your emotions. And so let's see, how does that tie all back into regret? So don't regret the things that you think are failures and that you think are mistakes, because they're gems. They can blossom. They will blossom into the person that you are. So okay, I'm kind of rambling now, but anyway, don't fear regret. Be vulnerable. Okay, Roger out.